The Hulk, prior to the Immortal Hulk series, can be understood through a surprisingly consistent internal logic that aligns more with energy absorption systems than simple brute force mutation. While most discussions reduce his power to anger alone, that interpretation misses a deeper, more structured mechanism at play beneath the surface. At the core of Bruce Banner's transformation is gamma radiation, which fundamentally altered his biology. This was not a one-time mutation that granted a fixed level of strength. Instead, it created a dynamic system, one that responds, scales, and evolves in real time depending on Banner's physiological and emotional state. The most important trigger within this system is adrenaline. When Banner experiences stress, fear, or anger, his body produces adrenaline like any normal human. However, in his case, that adrenaline does not simply enhance physical performance. It acts as a catalyst for gamma activity within his cells. The result is a continuous amplification process. As adrenaline increases, gamma output increases. As gamma output increases, Hulk becomes stronger, denser, and more durable. This is why the statement, "the madder Hulk gets, the stronger Hulk gets," is not metaphorical. It is a direct description of a feedback loop. Anger fuels adrenaline. Adrenaline fuels gamma. Gamma fuels strength. There is no indication in early portrayals that this loop has a defined upper limit. Instead, Hulk's power consistently escalates in proportion to the intensity of his emotional state. This is where a useful comparison emerges with Kryptonians from DC. Kryptonians derive their power from absorbing and metabolizing solar radiation, particularly from yellow stars. Their abilities are not static. They depend on how much energy they have absorbed and how efficiently their bodies convert it. In this sense, they function as biological solar batteries. Hulk operates on a similar principle, but with a critical difference. Rather than passively storing energy from an external, constant source like sunlight, Hulk's system is internally triggered and emotionally driven. His body does not simply contain gamma energy. It actively generates and amplifies it in response to psychological stimuli. This makes him less like a battery and more like a reactor. Describing Hulk as a cosmic energy vacuum becomes a useful conceptual model. His physiology appears to draw upon gamma energy in a way that is not strictly limited by baseline human biology. Instead of reaching a plateau, his strength continues to rise as long as the emotional and biochemical conditions persist. The more extreme the emotional input, the greater the output. This creates the impression of an open-ended system, one that can continuously scale without a clearly defined ceiling. Even before later stories introduced overtly cosmic explanations, Hulk's feats suggested access to power far beyond what a closed biological system should be capable of sustaining. He has matched or overpowered beings with clearly defined cosmic or divine energy sources, yet his own power source remained, at least on the surface, tied to human emotion and gamma radiation. This disconnect is what makes the energy vacuum interpretation compelling. It bridges the gap between grounded pseudoscience and the character's effectively limitless potential. In contrast to Kryptonians, who can be weakened by removing their energy source, Hulk's trigger is internal and self-reinforcing. As long as he can feel anger, fear, or stress, the system remains active. In fact, attempts to suppress or challenge him often have the opposite effect, increasing his power rather than diminishing it. This makes him uniquely difficult to counter, as his strength is directly tied to the very conditions that would normally weaken an opponent. Before the Immortal Hulk series reframed gamma as something explicitly connected to a larger cosmic force, the groundwork for that interpretation was already present. Hulk behaved less like a mutated human and more like a conduit, an entity capable of accessing and channeling energy in response to emotional stimuli. The science fiction explanation focused on gamma radiation and adrenal response, but the scale of his power hinted at something far more expansive. Taken together, the pre-Immortal Hulk portrayal supports a clear and coherent model. Hulk is not simply a strong character who gets stronger when angry. He is a reactive energy system, one that converts emotional intensity into exponential physical power. When viewed through this lens, the comparison to Kryptonians becomes not only valid, but clarifying. Both represent forms of biological energy conversion taken to their extreme logical conclusions. The difference lies in the trigger. Kryptonians are powered by the sun. Hulk is powered by his own emotional state, turning rage itself into an effectively limitless source of strength. In the end, the simplest explanation is often the most accurate. The Hulk, prior to Immortal Hulk, was never just a strong brute driven by anger. He was a system, a living, reactive engine built around gamma radiation and adrenaline, where emotion was not a side effect, but the core mechanism of power generation. His rage was not flavor, it was fuel. When viewed alongside Kryptonians, the comparison becomes clear. Both operate on energy conversion. Both scale beyond normal biological limits. But where Kryptonians depend on an external source, Hulk's power begins and escalates from within. His emotions trigger the reaction, and that reaction has no clearly defined ceiling. This is what makes Hulk fundamentally dangerous. You cannot simply outmatch him. You cannot reliably exhaust him. The very act of pushing him further only feeds the system that makes him stronger. Even before later stories introduced explicit cosmic connections, the signs were already there. Hulk did not behave like a closed system. He behaved like something open-ended, something that could keep escalating as long as the trigger remained active. A reactor, not a reservoir. Seen through this lens, Hulk is not just a product of gamma radiation. He is its ultimate expression, a being who converts emotional intensity into raw, ever-growing power, blurring the line between biology and something far more cosmic in nature. And that wraps up today's deep dive. If you enjoy exploring characters from this kind of analytical, lore-heavy perspective, make sure to stick around. There is a lot more to uncover, especially when you start connecting the science, the writing, and the larger universe behind these characters. If you found this breakdown interesting, consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. It really helps support the content and keeps these deep dives coming. Let me know in the comments what you think. Is Hulk closer to a biological reactor, or do you see him as something even more complex? Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.